He's on the session, right? Awesome. All right. Well, hey everybody. Hey, we're live. We're back at it. We're down to the final two talks. Holy cow! I hope everyone has just feel just the amazing amount of information we've received over the last 24 hours, barely 24 hours. I can't even believe it. So we have two left. We have one by Brian, which is very exciting. He's the one that is kind of pioneering the Neovim, the backend VS Code to the Vim as a library that is going on right now. I believe that one's a session. And then we have the open source summer experience with Shiransh. He will be joining any moment. So pretty exciting. Hopefully, we're trying to make sure we're running on schedule. He's ready to join right now. So I'll keep the introduction short. Please check out the ones you want. And I'll drop now. Oh my goodness, I'm already on. Well, he's on.
So, can you guys hear me? Am I audible? Okay, cool. So, I'm Shreyansh, and I'll be talking about my experience contributing to open source the entirety of this summer. So let's begin. So first of all, who am I? So I'm a college student pursuing BTech in computer science at a college named JIIT in India. I really like low-level stuff, kernels, compilers, you name it. So that's that. I also have been contributing to open source for quite some time now. I'd say it has almost been a year, but I haven't been too regular at that. And I am the Google Summer of Code student for the Neovim organization for this year. So what is Google Summer of Code? It is an initiative by Google to get more contributors to open source. So what happens is organizations apply for the program first and they get selected, and then students can participate by applying under the selected organizations and choosing a project given to them by the organization. So the organization mostly posts their projects on their websites or their GitHub repos almost a few months before the program starts. So you can choose a project from the organization. The project is kind of like a problem statement, and then you draft a proposal for the project, right? If you get selected for the program, then there is a selection phase where a few proposals are selected because of limited seats. You get to spend the rest of your summer having fun working on whatever you wanted to work on. So why should someone participate? I'd say for me, the best thing about this program was having a mentor or more than one mentors. Personally, to me, starting contributing to open source to a huge code base had always been very scary. So having a mentor definitely helps with that. It might just be me, but yeah, it helps. And one thing I'd like to mention that for the Neovim organization, if you want to contribute, just hop in. The community is really awesome. They'll help you if you ever get stuck. Secondly, of course, we get stipend. We get paid for our work. It varies. The amount varies depending upon where you reside. So I got myself a new laptop from my scholarship. I'll probably set it up tonight. It'll be fun, hopefully. You get a certificate from Google, which is good for your resumes for all the students, I guess. And the best part is you get to work on whatever you want to work on, right? And you get to learn cool new stuff. You get to learn whatever you wanted to. So what did I choose? Well, I choose Neovim, of course, because I had been using Neovim for quite some time now. It'll be almost a year in a couple of months. I know it's not as much as the other OG speakers out here, but well, that's that. So another thing that was true at that time was that I had been contributing to Neovim for a few months, so that definitely helped. So the problem statement that I was given, the project that I took up was, if you edit a file in Neovim, and let's say the file is changed outside the current editing session. So what happens is you do not know about it. But if you try to write that file, you are presented with a prompt that asks you to either load the changes and lose the changes that you made, or you just never write the file at all. One way of working around it could be to open the file in another editing session and then trying to see what changes were made and what do you want to save. But as you guys get the idea, it was not very straightforward. So the solution that I proposed was we could use libuv's file system event handles for the task, and every time we are notified about the file change, we can we can tell the user that that has happened. So why libuv file system events? Well, Neovim uses libuv under the hood, right, for its event loop. So I thought it would be good to leverage that for this purpose, and a lot of people from the community did too. I tried discussing it in the Gator channel, and that's the common feedback that I've had. So yeah, that's why I use that. So what are file system events? To give you a brief idea about it, kernels, almost all the kernels, I think they notify you about when stuff changes in the file system. So what they do is everybody does things differently, but in the most simple terms, they maintain a list, a queue, and they populate it every time an event happens. And the subscribers to that list can decide what to do about it after they receive an event. So different kernels try to do it differently. Linux has inotify. BSD, I think, has KQ. Mac has something entirely different. I think they have a virtual device for that, or maybe a separate file. I don't remember exactly. And of course, Windows does it in its own ways. So the problem is that, well, of course, they all have it, but those are different interfaces. So what libuv does is provides you with a uniform interface for that. So that's mostly the reason why I decided I'll use that. There were a few problems that I faced when I was trying to implement this. The first one that was discussed before I even started working on the project by contributors who tried working on it before me was how Vim saves file. So in order to save a file and have that operation atomic, I mean, it's not an easy task. So what Vim does is, depending upon how you set the backup copy option, it tries to back up the file by either copying the file or moving the file. So the problem arises when Vim tries to move the file. So what it does is, it tries to make a backup by moving a file to a separate backup location, and then writes a new file in its place. So and that interferes with the working of these handles, since the file no longer exists and they cannot watch on it. The solution was, of course, suggested by the people working on it before me, and it was to restart the watcher every time we get a notification. Another problem that arises because of the way how Vim saves files is we oftentimes get multiple notifications for a single change. So working around it was relatively easy, I'd say. What I did was I made a list of notifications, and since we don't really care about how many notifications are there for a file, I mean, at the end of the day, all you got to do is tell a user that, hey, the file was changed, and not how many times it was changed. So the list was rather simple. I mean, all I had to remember was if there was a change to a file or not, and that's that. So that's how we went around the multiple notifications thingy. There were some issues I had to work on, a lot of old PRs, old as in PRs that were already existing, that were worked on by other contributors, and I got a chance to work on them. So I faced some issues on those PRs, but thanks to my mentor, it was all really easy to figure out. Yeah, so I made a lot of stupid mistakes by myself too. The last one that I remember is, so I was working really late night. I think it was 3 a.m. in the morning almost. So and I was like this far away from having my project finished. And you know how excited you are at the time, right? So I decided that I'll finish this and then I'll go to sleep. So what I did was I tried to wrap up my work, and then as soon as I committed and pushed to master, I was greeted with a log message, an error built, of course, by Travis, that I was having a lot of loop close hangs. I tried figuring it out on my own. I couldn't realize what the problem was. Then I asked TJ about it, TJ DevRise, and he helped me with it. He told me I had been leaving handles open when Neovim was closing. So after getting that advice, I tried looking at the file where I was setting up the auto commands, and sure enough, there it was. I switched the commands. I started a new watcher every time I was supposed to close one, and I closed one every time I was to start one. At that point, I was wondering why it was working at all. But when it was working, I'm sure I made a bunch of other mistakes that I do not remember exactly, but the questions, but the people that I bugged with my questions would remember, I think, all of them. So yeah, sorry for that if that was annoying. So what was the integration plan then? So what I decided was, in the end, was we'd make a new option. I discussed this with my mentor and a lot of other people reviewing my PR. I named it FC Notify. Now I know it's not a very cool name, and I'm open to suggestions. You guys could drop a suggestion in the Neovim Gitter channel or here, and I'll read them after the talk is done. So yeah, I made the option. It takes a few values. It's a list of strings basically. Auto read is how we react when we get a notification. Watch and on focus are the two backends that we have right now. So what watch does is it uses the FS event handle for reacting to the notifications, and what on focus does is basically kind of a fallback for file systems where we don't get the notifications, like remote file systems, because since it is provided by the kernel and remote file systems would be under different kernel, we cannot get the notifications here. So yeah, for those files we could use auto commands like focus gained to refresh the file every time that event is triggered, and that's what was decided for the fallback anyways. And then we have the off option, which means don't watch at all. It is basically how Vim works today. And the auto read option, well, how it affects the behavior is, if it is set, if this value is passed to the option, we do not notify the user until and unless there is a change in the current editing session. So for a demo of what I have been working on, let's hope this works the first time. So let's say I was editing this file. I set file change notify to auto read and watcher. Then I open another Lua file. I run the file, and there you can see the text was updated as soon as the file was changed. If not having any notifications is not your jam, then we could drop the auto read from the option value and simply pass it watcher, and then boom, there are the notifications. So yeah, there are three options now for this. You could either do nothing, load the file, or see the diff. Now the diff helps with when you want to see the changes that happened and what you wrote, and you want to kind of decide later what you want to write to the file. I mean, with the diff, you could decide if you want this version or that version and work with diff get and diff put for your file. So of course it's not complete yet. There are a few rough edges here and there. I'll be working on it. I think it should be complete in a month. I mean 15 to 20 days, but for a good measure, I'd say in a month, since colleges are on now and we have a lot of assignments. Yeah, so that's what I made. So what was my experience like making it? Well, first off, I really thank my mentor Tito a lot. He's a super cool mentor. He always answered all my queries patiently. Even the times when I was the one that caused the issue, he very patiently listened to my queries and tried helping me with it. Same goes for TJ DevRise. He was kind of like a wise mentor to me. He has been helping me with all my queries basically. So yeah, thank you to the both of you. Then of course, writing the code was super fun. Except at some places, basically when you don't know why you're stuck here, right? Why is it not working? But then too, once it's done, once you fix the issue, you get a sense of achievement. I had the PR reviews were very constructive. I had constructive PR reviews. I mean, I know a lot of my friends who don't contribute to open source, thinking that they won't be able to handle the criticism. But truth be told, I mean, at least in this org and Neovim, I had never thought I was being criticized harshly or even mildly, to be honest with you guys. So yeah, the reviews were awesome. So the community, something that I think personally to be true is where an open source organization stands depends hugely upon the kind of community it has. A welcoming community attracts new contributors, people who add more stuff to your code, who fix bugs, who add features, who give suggestions, and so on and so forth. The product improves, right? So for Neovim, I'd say it's an excellent community. I was very welcomed the first time I hopped in the channel. I asked my queries and was helped. I definitely recommend you guys to, I mean, whoever has not been there yet, just drop in, try asking something. Anyone who's thinking of starting to use Vim or Neovim, just drop in and ask for help, and more often than not, you'll get an answer. What did I learn? Well, I learned a lot of stuff. I learned everything about libuv and the interface that it provided during my project and because of my project. I got better at programming with Lua, of course, and most of all, I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed contributing to open source in general. So, will I contribute to open source in the future? Well, of course I will. I mean, I don't see how people not want to contribute. I mean, some people, they get not so good mentors, and that's understandable. Not so good reviews, not so good maintainers. But fortunately for me, I've always been part of excellent communities. Wherever I went, I felt very welcomed. So yeah, I'll definitely contribute to open source and Neovim in the future. Okay, so how can you do what I did? So the one thing that comes up a lot every time I'm discussing open source with one of my friends around here is we tend to think that after we learn this one small thing, this one little thing, we'll be ready for contributions. We'll understand the source code. Truth be told, you will never learn enough before you think you can contribute. So it's best to start right away. Start small. Fix the documentation if you want to. Fix a beginner's bug. Different organizations have different labels for those. I've seen low-hanging fruit, good first-time issue, good first issue, beginner's bug, so on and so forth. Beginner's bug are really helpful. I mean, the maintainers leave it behind for a reason, right? It's not that they cannot fix it. They definitely can, but they leave it behind because if a newcomer was to come and try fix those, he would be introduced to the source code fairly quickly. As for the fixing the documentation part, I think every organization that I've ever been a part of really needs a lot more documentation related contribution, because the people that are working, that are programming, well, people are doing a day job and then they try and contribute to the code. So the maintainers, they often do not have enough time for the documentation, and fixing documentation is, I think, one of the best things you can do for any project. I mean, of course, it will help you learn a lot of things about the project. You can't document code that you don't know about. So yeah, that's one way of going about it. Another thing that I learned was we should let the community help us. I mean, don't be afraid of asking questions, right? Ask the questions even if you feel like they're a bit too dumb, but before asking, make sure you have put an ample effort in finding the solution yourself. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you research the question that you're going to ask, if you research the problem that you're facing, 9 times out of 10, you'll get the solution. And the one time that you don't get the solution, the question that you'll end up with after so much research would be a lot better than what you were going to ask earlier, right? So a question that I get a lot from my peers is, how do you choose an organization to contribute? To be honest with you, I too think about it at times, every time I think of contributing to a new project. But something that I've found is that you should try contributing to something that you've been using. So all the folks here, I'd say if anyone wants to give this a go, try helping people out at Neovim or Vim or whatever editor you've been using. So that keeps you motivated. Helps if you've already made contributions to that org earlier. This point is for GSoC specifically. So you wanted to take part in GSoC under a specific organization. It will help if you have contributions in that organization before hand. So that helps. Another thing about contributing to something that you've been using, it helps more if you want to fix issue that you've been facing. I mean, for my project, it was something that I wanted to see in Neovim. I really liked the editor, and this was something that bugged me. I don't think a lot of editors handle it the way my project will, and the way Neovim will in the future. So that would be really cool, I guess. So yeah, this was an issue that I was facing, and I thought, well, why not try taking a stab at it? I mean, in the worst case, I'd end up with at least something that works on my machine, so it was a win-win for me. So if it so happens that you just can't start contributing to something that you've been using, I don't know, for whatever reason, at least choose something that excites you, that you want to learn more about. Because personally, I feel like the best way of learning something is by doing it. I mean, I learn the best by doing stuff. Of course, you'll make a fool out of yourself a lot of times, but the lessons learned that way are something that you do not unlearn that easily. So choose something that excites you. Choose a project that you want to work on, that you want to learn more about, because you learn a lot about when you try and contribute to a project. So GSoC specific advice for people who want to try it. First off, it's only for students, only for university students. Secondly, research before you write your proposal, right? Research about the problem statement, of course, but also about the code that exists in the org. Because a lot of times you'll be able to find things that you can leverage for your own project. And code written that way is a lot easier to review. If you're using stuff that's already in the project, it's a lot easier to review and speeds up the getting the PR merged process. So research a lot. Leverage the community bonding period. As I cannot emphasize the importance of community enough. You get 1 month for it, you better use it. And of course, enjoy whatever you are working on. I mean, if you're not having fun doing work, I don't think it's worth it as much. So definitely choose something that you really, really like. So that almost brings me to the end of my slides. Acknowledgement. I'd like to thank, as I said, my mentor Tito for helping me through the program and also helping me with this talk. To give you guys an example of how cool and nice people are in the community, my mentor asked me a couple of days ago if I needed some help with the talk, and I said yes, of course, and he reviewed the talk for me. He wished me luck a few moments before I came here. So yeah, super nice community. I'd like to thank TJ DevRice for being my vice mentor. I think I can call him that. And helping me with whatever queries I came up with. And also recommending my talk here. I'd like to thank Vigo for making this tool for presenting on NVIM. And also I stole a few ideas from your presentation. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank Nicola for reviewing my talk while I was rehearsing. And I'd like to thank the Neovim community for helping me with all my queries even before I was working on a project. I mean, I know I had a lot of them. So yeah, thank for that. And also, of course, thank you for helping me during my project and with my project. I'd like to thank the organization for giving me such an awesome opportunity to return to the community. I mean, I always look forward to things like this. I always want to give back to the people who have been doing so much for everyone, um, just out of their goodwill. So yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity. And lastly, but not the least, I'd like to thank Adam and the Vimconf.live team for having this conf and having me speak here. And I think that brings us to the end of it. Um, Here are a few links. The first link is, yeah, I think I should mention it. The slides, I've uploaded them on my GitHub repo, but I think they'll be uploaded elsewhere too on the Vimconf.live site, I guess. I'm not too sure of it. I think Adam will let us know about that. So here are a few links to my proposal, to my project, and to my blog. Disclaimer, if you go to my blog right now, I don't think it has a lot of stuff. I have a lot of half written posts with me, but I haven't been able to work on them since I've been busy with the project. I hope to improve that though. So yeah, anyone who wants to basically learn about how things work can occasionally give that one a read. I'll mostly talk about such things there. And that brings us to the end of it. So are there any questions? Okay, so I see a lot of thank yous. Thanks a lot thanks Thomas you for the compliment. But I really think I didn't. I mean, Bigin's talk was amazing with all the musical stuff. Can you invoke vimdiff to merge external changes? I didn't really understand your question as well, Philippe. I hope I didn't butcher your name. But if you mean, can we invoke vimdiff to see the changes that were made outside the current editing session, then yes, like diff interface. Yeah, that's what is being invoked as of right now. Hey there, Matthew. What are the platforms supported? What do you intend to work on next, Neovim or else? Would you like becoming a mentor? So yeah, I definitely like becoming a mentor. I hope I can be one the next year, but that will be a tough thing, I guess. The platform supported, basically, I think we support every platform LibUV supports. I think we were able to work on the BSD issue that we were facing. So we should support every platform that LibUV supports, except the remote file systems, but that's not supported on LibUV either. What do you intend to work on next? So I'm definitely not stopping working on Neovim. I don't think I'll ever stop working on Neovim, so I'll definitely be working on this. I might start contributing to another project, but I'm not too sure about that, only if I have enough time left after college in Neovim. So what I'd like to work on next in Neovim would be, get this PR a bit further ahead and get this in front of everyone. And then, of course, any issues that come up with that. Do many of your student friends use Neovim or Vim? So in my college, there's this community, open source developers community, we call it. And people there often, I mean, if you talk about the newcomers, they don't yet in the college. But for my friends, whoever is a part of this circle, definitely uses Vim or Neovim. but I don't think the number is a lot. I mean, I plan on improving it this year by giving a few talks in my college too, I guess. But as of right now, I'd say it's probably 5 or 6. I mean, all my seniors do. And my friend circle, it's probably 5 or 6. Only. That's the answer to your question. Ha. +1 from Vim evangelism. How do you plan to write a regression test for this feature you have implemented? So the tests, I think I've already written the tests. I mean, I don't think, I know I've already written the tests. I've written, so the tests basically, the tests were basically making a change, outside the current editing session using a Lua script or anything, and then checking inside the Neovim instance if there were any notifications. I hope I didn't misunderstand your question. Just to be sure. Okay, so my network seems to be down. Am I still live? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, for the regression test strategy, I think. Okay, I think I misunderstood Ginjama here. Asking in terms of automation. I still don't get you, Ginjama. Oh yeah, so in Travis, so yeah, I wrote tests. Travis includes, Travis automatically executes tests, functional and unit tests every time you push commit. So I wrote tests for that. What I do basically is, yeah, it's exactly that. It's automated. So what happens is, it executes a script uh, that does the following. It makes a change to a file and then see if the current session was notified about the change or not. The details of the test would be very specific to the organization's code, I think. So I don't know if everybody wants to hear that, but basically that's the idea. We check if there was, if there was a notification for the change or not, depending on what the value of that was. Aha, right. Matthew mentioned something. So one of the issue with the test was the timestamp precision depends on file systems. Yeah, so we decided on. Uh, we decided. So what happens is, on some file systems, the time resolution is actually of 1 second or even 2 seconds on some file systems. I don't exactly remember the name off the top of my head. I'm bad with names. So what happened was, during the script, we didn't wait long enough for it to register as a change, and all the tests were failing, and I wasn't able to figure out what was happening. And that's when Matthew, my mentor, suggested I should try waiting before I check for the stuff. So finally what we decided was, we changed the creation and modified time of the file after we write to it through the script, so that we don't have to wait, and we also get to know if the file was changed later on. I think that's it. Are there any more questions, or should I be leaving now? I hope I'm not taking up someone else's time. Well, that looks like it. So off I go. Thanks a lot for being such a wonderful audience, and thank you once again, to my mentors and the organization and yada yada. Bye bye.